Hey guys, how are we? Some time ago I recorded a video called Let's Build Some Lists, episode 1. So this is going to be episode 2. We're going to be back at it. Come hang out with me while have some drinks, drink some wine, and just talk about Infinity. Talk about some of the armies and the kinds of lists we can come up with. I know everybody enjoys doing this, so why don't you hang with me, open yourself a browser of army.infinitythegame.com, and we'll get into it. One thing I've been thinking about a lot lately with the change to the recent Season 9 is the fact that if you build a list with a single combat group in it, just 10 orders, single group guys, then your opponent can't spend a command token at the start of the game to reduce your pool by 2, which is a pretty significant thing. It really makes 10 order lists a bit better because previously, if they had to go first, well, they don't really accomplish very much, and then they sort of get swamped. With that in mind, I just want to approach a list building with Yu Ching and talk about maybe some features of that as it applies to this faction. So let's do that. So here's Yu Ching here. And I first of all want to talk about the Guiji, which is something you might feel like you can afford if you're going to be spending a lot of points on models and only having 10 models in general. The thing about the Guiji is that if you compare him to, say, the Hack Tower, which is another good choice, the Hack Tower is almost always better in your Infinity army. The Hack Tower is more often than not more likely to help you win a game of Infinity than the Guiji is. Because the Hack Tower has the ability to go into Mark State, it's more defensible, it's less vulnerable to hacking, it's cheaper, it's better at face-to-face rolls because of the OD, so the thermo-optical camouflage and so on. So there's a number of different reasons. There is one thing that the Guiji does better than the Hack Tower, and by better I'm talking about not just the Hack Tower's HMG, but the missile launcher profile as well, and that is that the Guiji is better at losing the face-to-face rolls and benefiting you indirectly by tanking damage and forcing them to waste orders. So you're there in your deployment zone, you've got some partial cover, and they're hitting you with their HMGs. They've got ODD, or they've got a smoke template and MSV or whatever, and you might be taking some crits, but ultimately the point is that when you're armor 11 and when you're perhaps dodging or shooting back, you're at least negating a few of their rolls sometimes. It might take your opponent a long time to strip you down to unconscious and then remove you. So what you're hoping for with the Guiji is either to position him in a place where you get shot at and you pull back behind cover. If that's doable, you always want to take that option. Or you want to have your engineer nearby where you can revive him. Or you are comfortable with losing your tag, even though that's a massive chunk of points. Because if they've wasted their entire turn doing that, that might have bought you enough time to get into position with the rest of your army and win that way. So with that in mind, let's just talk about how he might function in a 10 order list. So let's chuck him in there. You might be thinking, well, okay, he's shooting back with effectively a missile launcher because the multi-HMG has explosive ammo, but what about if we take the Yanhuo instead? Well, the Yanhuo missile launcher, here he is here. You can take the Neurosynetics guy if you really want to just be playing that role of only doing work in your opponent's turn. And effectively, this guy's better because his long range is better, and he's got the same ballista skill. You miss out on 3 points of armor, which is big, and an extra wound, but you don't have to pay nearly as many points. And you're throwing 2 missiles back at them, and they've got a template, so that's a pretty big difference. But bear with me, guys. What I'm going to suggest here is, what if we take both models? Well, that's going to mean that your opponent is going to go after one of them and just focus on one of them, and that's fine. But the Yanhuo at least can drop unconscious and be behind the wall and be revived by the doctor. And then they've got to spend the rest of the turn maybe dealing with the Guiji. So with this sort of setup, it's not likely that in your opponent's first turn they're going to be moving out through the fire lanes. They're going to be spending their first turn just doing that uncomfortable job of spinning their own orders, trying to engage with your ARO pieces and shooting them. And yes, they'll win. They'll beat these units. But they're risking some things. Let's say they get incredibly unlucky and they die to your return fire. Well, it's basically game over. You've got the game in the bag there. If they kill your models too slowly or leave them unconscious, allowing you to revive them, well, you're also at an advantage for that game. And if they get incredibly lucky and wipe out these two models, well, theoretically, we've still got another 8 models in our list, and we're still going to take some fairly efficient models with the rest of our army, and there's still an objectives. Objectively, I mean, there's still objectives to complete in the game, is what I'm trying to say. So, even if we lost both these arrow pieces, it just wouldn't be the end of us. So, let's keep that in mind. Now, with these two guys here, I think the next most logical thing to add to the army is the doctor and the engineer, right? So, to really make them pay the price of not removing these models completely, you want, these guys here, and that helps us to fill out the orders, and they're very, very cheap. Also, this is Infinity. We still have to press buttons and complete missions, right? So straight away, we're just going to put in the super obvious, almost always take them, Guilong Fort Observer and Ninja Killer Hacker. So now we're up to 6 orders. We've got 4 left, and we've still got about 70 points left to spend. So what this list is lacking is some way to really punish your opponent if they want to give you the first turn. Like if they want to just let you come at them. And obviously the Guiji and the Yanhuo aren't really that good at being Rambos and running across the board. I mean, the Guiji arguably is, but I don't particularly think he is, because I just don't think he's as efficient at removing and clearing models, in the sense that if you do that, you're just going to leave him out of position, he'll die. So this is where we have a bit of a think. I mean, I'm just going to chuck in the Flash Pulse remote just because I want to get a bit closer to 10 orders and not spend too many points here. This is where the list gets interesting, because there are 2 ways you can go with it. One path I like to take is to put Shinobu in there. Because with Shinobu, if you're going first, you've got 10 orders to spend on her, and if you want to, she can start in the middle of the table and walk over there, or you can really use superior infiltration if you really want to. And with 10 orders, Shinobu is going to be able to pick things off with her combi rifle quite effectively, or she's going to be able to get into close combat with either the lieutenant, giving you a full like almost straight into your next turn, because they are crippled, or something critical like their tag if they've taken one, or a significant heavy infantry piece. And after you've scalpeled out that really big thing, then you've got a massive advantage of the game. Or maybe they've got 1 or 2 models which are specifically going to counter your missile launching ARO piece. Well, Shinobi kills that, and then, well, what do they use now? Say you're playing Hakaslam, as I often do. Say you kill the Janzaban with HMG. Well, I've got all that smoke, but there's no MSV anymore, so what are they going to use to shoot back at your Guiji or your Yanhuo? That's a big advantage. Even if you traded Shinobu for that model, it's a big points down trade. It's an ineffective trade on paper, but in context, if you're taking out the only thing they have to deal with your massive ballistic skill arrow pieces, that could be amazing. Thing is, with Shinobu there, you've only got 2 orders left, and let's have a look. The points, there's only enough for a couple of very inexpensive models. We need a lieutenant, and this is where it becomes awkward too. Like, your lieutenant in this list becomes super obvious, so you chuck a Zanshi in there, for example. What else do we need? Oh, I didn't choose the lieutenant model. And then 6 points, what does that even get you? I think that this list actually becomes impossible to fit the specific points in. In fact, if you really wanted to, you could even take the Kaisotsu lieutenant for 9 points to actually slot things in there. So that, I mean, this is one way to do it. I mean, you can, that 10th model could be something else like a Shaolin Monk if you really want to. It doesn't really matter about the irregular order. I mean, you've got command tokens galore, so that's going to work. But yeah, I mean, the thing I don't like about this list is that it's very vulnerable to things like the Fide, Al-Jabal, the Specular Killer, because those things are really going to punish your Guiji or your Yanhuo very effectively, or they're going to notice who the lieutenant is and kill that model. Alternatively to Shinobu, you could go with the Oniwaban, who arguably, in some situations, is going to do damage better in terms of shooting rather than close combat with a boarding shotgun. I don't really love it, but at least you've got a few extra points to spare for those extra couple of models. Okay, so the other way that you can go about doing this is to actually go with the Dow Fa instead, or a Tiger Soldier. If we look at the Dow Fa, things get a little bit more awkward here, though, because, where is the Dow Fa anyway? I always forget him. Oh, here he is. So what we'd want to do with the Dow Fa is we'd want to go with the Spitfire. really low on points at this stage, so I think if you're really going to be doing it this way, you're probably going to have to scale back either the Guilang or the Ninja, or exchange the Guiji for something different. Say we take out the Guiji and we have 2 Yanhuos with missile launchers, and would need a hacker in here. No, we've got a hacker, so we're missing the lieutenant still. So this is still a pretty seriously sickening ARO list with those 2 Yanhuos. You can run it though. So the Zanshi's in there. Note that your opponent doesn't know whether the Dow Fa is a lieutenant or not. Actually, can the Dow Fa be a lieutenant? Yes, it can. Okay, so that's a possibility. And then we've got another, like a 30-point thing there. So here's one thing you could do. Switch out the Dow Fa Spitfire standard for a Lieutenant Spitfire, and then you might even have enough points for a peasant. And you wouldn't normally do this, right? But let's say we take a pheasant, I should say, not a peasant. Who is this? I really like the Mad Traps guy. And then we've still got 5 points left over for something. And okay, Shaolin Monk. So we've got one. It's not very pretty, is it? It's a list where there is like a 1 irregular order standing out, which you always have to convert unless you're going to be spending it. Let's talk about this though. So with this list, those Yanhuos are really going to be a problem for your opponent. If your opponent is going to creep up on them with a superior infiltrator or an impersonator, well, the Mad Traps might get them. So that's actually quite kind of cool for defending against that kind of thing. If you're having to go first, well, that Dow Fa, you're going to spend 11 orders on a Dow Fa just moving around and blasting them with a Spitfire. So if your opponent has made any deployment mistakes, it's probably game over for them. You know, people like to talk about that kind of thing. In real life, though, against a player who is equally skilled as you or better, chances are, you know, you're going to run out of orders, you're going to get a few kills, then they're going to kill the Dow Fa, and the game carries on. One tip there, I think, is with your Dow Fa, I would, at the end of your turn, leave him somewhere such that for your opponent to get to him, they have to cross the lanes of the Yanhuos. So they have to kill the Yanhuos first, no easy task, or put smoke in the way, to be honest, and then get round to the Dow Fa, who might have recamouflaged himself. So you can be really annoying with that. And at the end of the day, this list still has five specialists in it. So it's actually kind of cool. I don't know whether I like this better than the Guiji list, but it's still pretty awesome. With the new Dow Fa model being out now as well, that's kind of handy, the Spitfire one especially. So again, the Pheasant rank, you don't really want to have to spend a lot of points on them, but for that model, you're getting Chain of Command, you're getting a Specialist, and you've got those Mad Traps to protect your deployment zone a bit more, and your Lieutenant may be vulnerable once it becomes the Imperial Agent as well, so that might be a big deal. So I think this is quite a cool way of playing Infinity. Hope you guys agree. Just going to take my drink break. Let us move on. Shasvastii. All right. So Shasvastii are a subfaction. They're a sectorial of Combined Army, and they are long overdue for some resculpts. They have models, but their rules are a little bit lagging behind. They haven't really received many updates, and some of their rules are kind of a little bit clunky and a little bit outdated. Note also that Bit and Kiss have been given to Combined Army in general, and apparently, according to what I'm seeing here, Shasvastii can take them as well. So I guess we'll talk about that at some point. I do like Bit and Kiss, the new incarnation. I think they're great. It's great that Combined Army have them, and they're a steal. They're a really good set of profiles. But in the list that I had in mind that I wanted to share with you guys today, they aren't really the focus. What I want to do in this list is, first of all, just point out the fact that, okay, when you're playing a sectorial, you miss out on the chance to take a whole bunch of things, but you're rewarded by fire teams and extra availability on some things. Those are the main benefits, and sometimes special characters. The list that I have in mind will not be using the fire teams. I don't think Shasvastii really have fire team options that are much to write home about compared to the other factions. You talk about some some of the sectorials and they're just all about the fire teams. That's the only thing they have going for them. But I think it's the availability on certain models that really make me interested in this. So first of all, let's go to the Shrouded, which is everyone's equivalent of the Guilang, the infiltrating, camouflaged specialist. So let's take a couple of Fort Observers. It's availability 4, so these guys are going to do a lot of work, and I mean, they're such a steal for their points. Being able to take 4 of them is really, really cool. The first comment is that with Fort Observer, you've got more than enough button pressing now. So they're so hard to remove, and they've got Whip 13, so they're going to press some buttons, but having 2 of them is going to get the job done. So beyond that, you don't really need any more Fort Observers. It's a little bit it's diminishing returns. Having said that, if we take an assault hacker there as well, we're not taking the assault hacker to be a specialist. We're taking the assault hacker to help us just have a hacker in general, because we're going to take some remotes in this list. And the assault hacker quite often comes up. And the beautiful thing is your opponent's never going to guess which one is the assault hacker. They're just going to know that you have one. So I think that's really helping to synergize with your high number of similarly placed markers. And then, of course, the mine layer. And the reason why the mine layer is of so much value here, where it might not be as valuable elsewhere, is that the more camo markers you have on the table, the harder it is for your opponent to figure out which one is actually a mine. They're probably going to know when they see 5 camo markers in the middle of the field, but it's going to be much harder for them to discern which one it is until you start moving things out. So with that setup, I think we're looking really good. I don't believe we need any of the other versions here. We've got specialists, we've got the extra mine. I think this synergizes really, really well. So this is taking up a lot of points already. Next up, we're going to take the 2 Echidron Bacadroids because we always take those. They're just the best and most efficient specialists there. I'm going to take an R-Drone just because we're going to need the points. We're going to need the orders. We're almost always going to take the MedTech because, again, he's just so useful for completing classifieds, and he's such an efficient model in general. We need a lieutenant, and having done some thinking about this setup, I think the lieutenant is almost always going to have to be this guy, the Asswang. I'm pretty sure you call him an Aswang, but I call him the Asswang. And this guy is actually quite a good lieutenant, even though he's sort of a little bit overpriced at 26 points. It's worth paying that 26 points to have a lieutenant that never leaves your deployment zone and just lives. If you're going first and you have to stave off a win for your opponent at the end of the game in their last turn, you can put him out in the open and he can ARO with his adhesive launcher, which could be game winning. If they try and assassinate him close combat, well, he's got Prothean level 2, so that helps. Also, if something happens to die nearby him, he can go over and eat their corpse as well. So, yeah, I mean, these are very situational things, but they'll come up. And, hey, sometimes he's going to do a little bit of fighting. Ballistical 12, combi rifle, camouflage. He's going to get some work done. So I really don't mind paying 26 points for him. And then I'm also going to throw in a Q drone. And we're going to make it the... in fact, maybe not a Q drone. Let's chuck Bit and Kiss in there. Chuck them in there. So the main reason I want to talk to you guys about this list is the next thing that happens. And this is the crazy, crazy part. Noctifers are availability 3. So remember, in Combined Army, they're availability 1, and they're already so good you take them very often. And then in Onyx, they're availability 2, and now they're availability 3 in this sectorial. So what if we take 3 of them? What if we go for the missile launch guy, then we get a bit greedy and we take another missile launch guy? Then we could have 3 of them. So let's take the third one. So imagine how this works. You've got like a raised building in your deployment zone, which has got a decent fire lane, but you've got nothing on it. And your opponent moves out with their tag, or they move out with their link team, God forbid. And they're like, well, you obviously don't have any arrows, so I'm going to keep moving. And you're like, well, actually, I've got 1, 2, 3 arrows. Pew, 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 with the missiles. And you probably see some panic. Let's just talk about this. So it's going to get predictable, especially if you continue to use this list in tournaments and against other opponents. So the surprise factor will be lost pretty quickly. But even if you lose the surprise factor, Your opponent is sitting there playing around 3 missile launchers for the entire game. Sometimes it's going to be better if you don't reveal them all too quickly. If you can find an unexpected fire lane and stack them all, well, you're just going to obliterate anything that comes past that. That's awesome. But the other, a more patient way to play it, and the way that I prefer, to be honest, is to have them semi-stacked, but spring them one at a time. So your opponent moves out with a trooper, you shoot, you blast it. Okay, they move around their smoke guy, they move around their Memisphere guy, and they shoot your Noctifer, and they spend a couple of orders with it because he's got dogged and doesn't go down very easily. Cool. All right, they've cleared that problem, they've solved that problem. Then they keep moving with somebody else. Oh, and you reveal another Noctifer. Okay, we'll have to go back and, do that again and actually keep shooting, and you've got dogged again. So they're spending the entire game slowly working their way through these 3 ARO pieces, which you've just got sitting conveniently in a second combat group. And if they get particularly unlucky, then your Noctifier hits at some point. The fact that they've got to get through 3 guys, and they all have dogged, and you get to choose when you spring them, is kind of yuck. Or if you really want to, if the table's a bit more dense, you might be picking 3 different fire lanes to cover with them individually. Now, not every list is perfect. Let's talk about some of the weaknesses. You might be on a dense table where none of them get good fire lanes, and they just are like 96 points of nothing, and not to mention the, 4.5 special weapons costs that they are. So this is kind of a list that you bring out when the table when the table dictates that it's going to be okay, when the table actually allows for it. Even when the Noctifers aren't doing work, I mean, you've still got a pretty strong list. Those Shroudeds move forward, they take zones, they capture objectives, they kill things. Being Shasvastii, if you're playing a mission where it's all about who kills the most stuff, well, the Shasvastii rule is going to be pretty awesome in the sectorial because you can just keep everything going unconscious. Most things have got auto medkits anyway, and you just deny them a whole bunch of points. So this actually can be quite a hilarious list, if you guys feel me. One other way I sometimes think to play this list is to actually put Shishkin in there and actually have a bit of a smaller list. So let's take away Bit and Kist. Let's take away the Assault Hacker. Let's put Shishkin in as a Red Fury. And what are we missing here? Oh, we've got to have a hacker for that to work. My bad. Okay. So what we'd have to do in this sort of situation is to bring the Noctifier into this. So we can do that. You could have just 2 Shroudeds if you want to, and change one of them to a hacker and put that Bit and Kiss back in there. But the point is that this list is viable. Like, if you're going first, you make an assassination run, and you make a Rambo run with Shishkin if you want to, and if you're going second, you've got the Noctifers to really stall them. So that's another way of playing it. I kind of prefer the first list more. It's a bit classier, but Shishkin's really, really good. So that's another way to play Shasvastii. What are we going to do next? I'm going to have a drink while I think about it. Honestly, I don't know, guys. We could talk about the Japanese sectorial army, or it's going to be Aleph. I've written a few Aleph lists recently, and I found like a lot of options on Aleph weren't really to my liking, to be fair. Let's talk about Aleph. I mean, what sort of list can we build? All right, so let's talk about building a list that really I'd build if I had more models than I currently have, because I think my list is mainly based around Achilles and the kind of models that I normally run. So, first of all, Myrmidons. I think it's probably worth taking at least 1 chain rifle Myrmidon with normal smoke grenades. I think that's actually a pretty good unit choice, and I don't own any Myrmidon models, so you kind of want them in there. You're going to be taking some posthumans, but let's get to them later. Some people feel that the Asura is pretty cool, but I don't particularly like the Asura. I think that she's a little bit slow, a little bit overcosted. She doesn't really ARO very well. So maybe we're not so much going to go for her. I was recently thinking about Diomedes. I mean, Diomedes maybe not the most reliable, given that he's a drop trooper, and sometimes your opponent just may defend a little bit too well for that kind of thing. We've got the Marut as well. We could sort of talk about a Marut list, although I've never been the biggest fan. I find that if you run into an Albedo, you're also in a little bit of trouble, which can sometimes be a bit unexpected. The Myrmidon, though, if you're going to be taking the Asura, you should always take this single chain rifle Myrmidon for the smoke grenades. Another way to do it, though, is to take the Agema. And with the Agema, I think if you're just trying to pick something off, the Mark 12, usually the range is going to be a little bit too low. Whereas the multi-sniper rifle, I think, allows you to kind of do a little bit of work as an ARO piece while also being fairly active with this template, the smoke template. Although having said that, I don't think like two bursts in the active turn isn't super reliable. And the missile launcher, I don't really love him unless he was part of a link team or something. I just don't really feel like he cuts the mustard. So in terms of MSV2 choices, or 3 choices in the case of this faction, I'm not really sure. I mean, to take advantage of smoke, it's either going to have to be the Agema or the Asura or the Marut. I'm probably missing some options. I think a couple of the Greeks have it as well. Like Chusa, he's got an MSV2 profile, and I think Atlanta does as well. Atlanta seems really cool, but she's just a bit overpriced for what she does. She's too easily countered, is I think the general feeling there. I tell you what, just for a bit of fun, let's see what use can we get out of an Asura? What's the best we can do with one? Well, I think it's got to be the Spitfire, right? I mean, she's built for fighting. She's not really built for much else. I mean, she's not there to provide arrows. She can be a great specialist, but that's not what you spend like 70 points doing. You're going to spend the bulk of those points fighting. And unlike Achilles, she can reveal camo markers automatically, and she can win face-to-face rolls that Achilles might struggle a little bit with because of her MSV3. So that's sort of the capacity in which you want to use her. She's also possibly tougher than Achilles if you factor in the armor 5 BTS. Well, it depends which version of Achilles you take, really. And if she's standing in a smoke cloud, well, it's effectively ODD anyway. So that's the kind of setup you want. She's just not as fast as him or as good in close combat, which can be a bit of an issue. Right? So let's talk about it. Asura and a Myrmidon. So that's looking really cool. Posthumans. Well, you guys have seen the kind of posthumans that I take. Let's talk about taking more than I would normally take. So the hacker, I think, you want the hacker in there. I mean, you're going to have something in the list which does the normal hacking job. Yes, you can take the Danvanas. I suppose you could do it that way. But I just feel like this is just more efficient. It's a more efficient way of doing it. Now, we obviously want to take the Proxy Mark II, because the Proxy Mark II is the most broken proxy out there. And, yep, Assault Hack is very good, but Multi-Sniper is better. With the Multi-Sniper, you're not losing an order by keeping it in hidden deployment. It's cheap as hell, and, you know, you want your Multi-Sniper starting in the deployment zone anyway. That's what you're getting. Blitzskull 13 is premium for that kind of thing, and you got NWI, so they may really struggle to remove it. That's what you want there. But, look, let's just talk about having a third posthuman in there, because if we're not going to go too heavy on the orders in total, I think we can afford to have a few more in there. SWCs we've used a lot so far, so maybe not the heavy. Maybe not the heavy. These ones are cheap as chips. So the forward observing submachine guns guy with forward deployment level 2, that's kind of cool. Nanopulsar EM grenades, yeah, I can see how that would be useful. The Mark 12, I'm not sold on that. Just the 10-point proxy there, I think that could be really handy. I mean, for 10 points, even just slowing them down a bit, I mean, to cut through an NWI model might take them a couple of orders, and having a 10-point model potentially EMPing them or nanopulsing them as they do that is just too good to pass up. So let's just try that out. As always, I prefer to take some cheerleaders, and they're quite hard to come by. The 2 Flash Pulse bots are a must, I reckon. With the Krakot Renegades, I take 2 of them, but we're going to take at least 1 in this list. The submachine gun guy is the choice there. Cube Jaeger, haven't been a huge fan. Dan Vanas, Diva. Well, we want a lieutenant, so I like to go for the Diva lieutenant, so she can go in there as well. And we're still nowhere near the 10 order mark. So is this going to be a 10 order list? I hope not. I hope that we can get further than that. With the Naga, okay, so the Naga's cool. Naga killing hacking device, yeah. So that's really good for pressing buttons, being out there, doing the hacking war, and with Dogged, can actually take some fights as well. Maybe I won't take the Dazu on this list just to preserve a few points. I think that's probably going to be a safer thing to do. Going back to the Myrmidons, instead of taking one chain rifle, we could take two. It's only 16 points. Although, I feel like maybe the better way to go is just to take the baggage bots like I've been doing in my list. So this is quickly turning into the kind of list that I actually normally run anyway. So this is kind of boring. Samic Probots, so double Minesweeper. So now we're at 10 orders, and we've still got 65 points left. So this is where we can go in and chuck the net rods in. And we can talk about what we want in the secondary group. So I'm just wondering, I think putting the proxies into the secondary group, I prefer to do that just because they're going to be a bit passive. You're going to be spending the support where they're maybe shooting with the sniper occasionally or moving up with the submachine gun guy. So that's perfectly fine. I always take the Dakini, I mean in the Aleph list that I've built so far, just because you can put assisted fire on your Dakini HMG, right? So that's always going to be a win. Now we've got, looks like 32 points left, so can we afford a really cool drop trooper to go in Group 2 and actually deal a bit of damage in Group 2, or should it just be another Naga? So we could put an assault hacking Naga in there, that'd be awesome. We could put a TR bot, don't really think I want to do that. The Dazu's too expensive, just out of our price range for this. Sophotect is probably going to be good, like we probably want to do some repairs, but let's say for the sake of it, let's say we weren't going to go with the Sophotect. We've got a SWC, we could have a combi rifle Garuda, but we're not really spending our points very efficiently there. I don't think we can afford Diomedes. So I think probably the smartest thing probably would be to go for the Sophotect then. We could have Mark 12 Agema Marksman, that's not a terrible choice. Sophotect is perfect number of points, so it's going to be the Sophotect at the end of the day, but are there any alternatives? I know there was a thread recently about Andromeda. So we can afford Andromeda, but I think Andromeda is one of the worst profiles in Infinity at the moment. And I want to spend a bit of time dwelling on this one, because the model's really cool. 30 points or so, that's not cheap. That's actually what I consider to be a moderately expensive model. And for that, you're getting a model that doesn't particularly fight at range. So 12 ballistical 12 and a combi rifle. Unless I'm missing stuff, you've got no ODD there. You can tank a little bit of damage with NWI, but let's be honest, there's so much shock in the game, and really you're not buying a model just to take an extra wound and tank it and just die like that. So if you're moving across and shooting at them, well, you should be doing that with something else. I mean, in this list alone, you've got the Dakini with HMG. Even the submachine gun proxy is going to be alright at doing that. The Naga is going to be alright at doing that. The Krakop might be better at doing that. And obviously the Asura Spitfire is going to be crazy at doing that. So those are the models that you want to attack with, not so much this model. Well, what about close combat? Well, I prefer close combat models which can sneak up and get into close combat efficiently. Forward deployment level 1 is not going to do that. You've only got speed 4-4, so you're not going to race across the battlefield actively getting into close combat with them. Guard level 3 is going to give you an advantage in close combat, but it's not necessarily going to make you much better. Remember, she wins a close combat role. DA close combat weapon, cool. Physical 12. She's going to have a hard time hacking through tags and things like that, right? So it's not really going to be that amazing. And mimetism, I guess I should have talked about mimetism when she's doing the fighting, but to be honest, I mean, for the reasons I mentioned above, you should be attacking with the Asura, the Dakini, things like that. So she's just overcosted. It's just kind of sad, really. She's not super tough. Close combat is not really her strong point. It's not really where she's super efficient. I mean, she's better at that than anything else. She's a specialist, whip 13, but yeah, I mean, you've got other things that can do that. So it's just really disappointing that, given the really cool model, she's not actually better at doing that. Just going back to it, we could go for the Dan Vanis hacker instead of the Sophotect. Thing about this, though, is that with a hacking device plus, What do we get out of that? We can Cyber Mask, which is kind of handy for her, but doesn't help the list very much. White Noise could be cool. So you put your white noise down through your repeater zone. The Dakini moves into that and absolutely obliterates their MSV model. So that could be cool. I just feel that's a little bit situational though. Your opponent's going to know that's possible, and they might be a little bit more more conservative with their Nest sniper. Although that could be a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing if you're struggling a lot with things that have MSV, like maybe tough things with MSV2, and you really want to thrash those things very badly. Then hey, I mean maybe the white noise is the way to go. So that could be kind of cool. But she's got some other handy hacking abilities. Just those are the standout ones, I feel. And she's quite affordable. So if you prefer that over the Sophatect or something else that we've included in this list, if you want to make something else a lieutenant somehow and swap out even the Diva for the Danavas, then go for it. I haven't been a huge fan. The Pitcher, yep, that's good for assault hacking. So you've got your killer hacker there, but the thing is, the killer hacker has infiltration anyway. It can usually get to its target anyway. It's only if there's a bit of a street you have to cross without being killed that the Pitcher becomes useful. So yeah, I mean she's good. I'm not gonna rant on about her too much. I think she's worth her points, but she's not there for every single list. Sort of what I want to say there. Yeah, Diomedes. Yeah, he's cool, but he's super expensive. I don't know if we can really commit to him in a list like this. We could try the Ectromoy. What are they priced at? Oh yeah, okay. So instead of the Sophatect, we could have a little Ectromoy in there. What would we go with if we did that? I think probably just the basic combi rifle, to be fair. That gives us another 3 points for a Warcore if we wanted it. In fact, we do want the Warcore on that list, because then if the Ectromos is doing some work, we could convert that irregular order into a regular order and actually give him extra order to spend. So yeah, the Ectromoy could actually come on through the back, got super jump, maybe can get to close combat with something. Yeah, super jump could be handy for getting into line of sight of the lieutenant or something like that. So yeah, that could be kind of cool. So this is a kind of a fun list. Again, the Asura is a bit of a I like Achilles better. But I mean, you could definitely make her work. I mean, she's not a bad model by any means. I think that if you use the Danavas with white noise, then obviously that's going to affect your own Asura model. White noise doesn't affect the model that cast it, but or maybe it does. I'm thinking of Albedo. Albedo doesn't affect the model that actually has it, so you could have a MSV2 model with Albedo. I think the Blackfriar has that, for example. So that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, Asura, I just find her a little bit slow. I find her a little bit clunky. I find her a little bit predictable. But if your opponent lets her have her way, then she's going to be in some pretty awesome, awe-inspiring situations. And she doesn't have to be a lieutenant, so that's good. So you can afford to lose there. You've got a lot of things that can kick butt in this list. Ooh, all right, yeah, I'm kind of feeling it. All right, well, 3 lists is enough for tonight. I don't want to make this video go on for too long, but if you enjoyed watching this one, just write me a comment. Let me know what sort of factions you want me to talk about, and I don't mind if you guys give me suggestions for my videos. Yeah, most of the time I'm not going to do your suggestion on YouTube, but I might. So don't feel afraid to say that you want more content based on analysis or battle reports or particular issues in general for Infinity. Thanks for watching.